Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think it's an awesome way to kind of leave the best till last and have a panel at the end to hear from kind of experts from across the entire ecosystem. I'm looking forward to learning a lot from them. I'd love for you to be thinking about questions that you have for them. You're going to learn a little bit about them as we get started here, because I've got a few questions that I'll kick things off with, but get things clicking, and then a little bit in here we'll open up. We've got mics available, and we'll be asking for getting questions from you. I really enjoy doing panels. I used to run this web browser panel back in the day, and Apple would never show up, so we just had a seat with an apple on it. But it's really fun to have everyone here. And I hope you're having a good time at Unite as we kind of come to a close here. Thanks again for coming. It's been really energizing just actually being in person and learning from you all. But to kick things off, we want to hear from these folks more than me. So if you could kind of give a little bit of an intro and also kind of weave in there, like, how did you get into the Shopify ecosystem? So let's start with you, Thomas, at the end.
Cool. Hey, everyone. My name's Thomas. I entered the Shopify ecosystem as an employee of Shopify in 2015. I worked on free themes, building free themes. I worked on theme developer tooling. I worked on theme performance, developer advocacy, and it was a year and a day ago that I started at Archetype Themes. I was handed Archetype from two of my old original theme teammates who had wanted to build themes themselves, and am now pursuing this next chapter of themes, this new angle of themes as CEO of Archetype, learning more about what it is to run a theme business.
Awesome. Daria?
Hi, everyone. I'm Daria. I have an interesting journey, I guess, with Shopify. I actually started as the, director of e-commerce for my current company, who at the time were merchants. And we, within a year or so, realized we didn't have the best business plan. So we pivoted into more of a service-based industry. And I, having toyed with the Shopify themes, started to just play around more and play around for our clients. And then I think I got an email to join the Shopify Partner Program back in 2012. I did. I got in. And then we started getting leads, and I told the co-founders, I think we have a pretty good business idea here to start a Shopify agency within our company. And now it's been 9 years since that, and we really have grown in the ecosystem.
Awesome, thanks. Gil?
Hey everyone, I'm Gil. So I do app development now, but I started probably in 2016 as a front-end developer. So I was working on Magento in the agency life. And I was pretty fed up with Magento 2, so I don't know if anyone's worked with Magento, but it had a pretty opinionated front end. So I came across Shopify at a conference for front end developers in 2015, 2016. Just kind of blew my mind how nice and easy it was to get started. So pretty much from 2016 on, I was in the Shopify ecosystem and learned my way through to being an app developer, just learned backend. So I know enough to make apps now, but I wouldn't call myself a backend developer. And yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Awesome, great. So we've got themes, agency, apps within the agency world. So we've got a lot of things covered there, which is really awesome. And so as I got into Shopify and I talked to developers that weren't in the world of commerce, they could quickly build a hello world and play around with things, but their first question was always like, how do I actually come up with an app idea or a theme idea? So how have you gone about finding those and finding your niches and opportunities? Maybe Daria, we can start with you.
Well, I think, I leave it to them to come up with the app and theme ideas. We really feed off of what our clients need, and we really try and listen to what their problems are and then problem solve around that. But how you kind of find your niche is really around the people, I think, and the skill set that you have. I pretty quickly realized I don't actually like coding. So I hired, I did like the strategy, I did like the kind of user experience of things, so I hired our first developer, probably 3 months into having actual clients. And then from there, once things got too busy and the things that I knew weren't my strong suit, I would hire for that. And then our current, I would say the thing that sets us apart now is how data-driven we are with our design, and that's because we hired an incredible analyst to go through conversion rate optimization and checkout flow and make sure that the people who are landing on the site are checking out. So,
got it. Great. Thomas?
It's funny, I think what's come up this Unite for me, it was actually thanks to office hours that I had yesterday with the theme review team. They were showing me on the theme store that they're trying to highlight specific features that are in themes, and they're showing filters by features. And for me, that just got me thinking, what if apps, like how many apps are also doing these features? That yes, some themes have these features. Apps can go so much deeper into specific features, so much deeper than themes can. That for me was a ripe kind of list of ideas for apps. So take a look, maybe.
Nice.
Something there. Yeah.
I'm probably the opposite of Daria. So like, I'm a builder. I like making things. It can be problematic because if you start with a solution or you build without a problem, then you have a problem. So coming from the agency life, I think just like trying to talk to as many merchants as possible. Like they have problems. You start with one use case and you build a simple version of the app with that use case, making sure that it has the same problem or a similar problem across many merchants. I usually say like 10 or 20 merchants. And that way you have an idea of like a larger sample size. And then just finding a problem that you can easily start with that can then expand to fit more use cases. So I always have like maybe a larger vision, but starting with that small single use case.
Got it. So are you the only person working at your company? Like how do you wear all of the hats? Are you looking to grow? Like how do you think about the business side and everything that you do?
Yeah, I guess you'd call me like an indie dev or a solopreneur. I don't actually have a company since I'm just by myself. I would say a business is like you can step away for a week and you go to Italy and nothing blows up. Right now.
Yeah, either. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say like you kind of have to figure out like what you want. So if you're by yourself, you have that flexibility that you might not otherwise have with a team. I do think that like long term, it's not sustainable. So I'm definitely like getting close to getting to a point where I probably need to like start to hire people to help. So yeah, it's definitely doable if you're a developer to start a company by yourself and build that up to a full-time job like I did. But you kind of reach a point where you have to decide if you're going to become a company or you're just going to continue on your path being a smaller developer and partner.
Got it. And then Daria, you obviously grew out early. How's it been like finding people? Do you have to do a lot of in-house training? How's that all worked out for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think especially at the beginning, I did not hire entry-level people. I think that was, I didn't have time to train people at the beginning. So our first developer, he was exclusively a Shopify front-end developer. I found him on Reddit, which is a great resource. And from there, I think same thing with designers and our analyst that I mentioned before. She's been with us 4 years now. Same thing. She's been in the internet since 1993. So that was a big plus for me. And I think for me, just again, I couldn't possibly do everything. But I do have to give my team kudos. I just got back from mat leave, and they took care of the whole department for 3 months without me, and probably did a better job than I could, which is all I could hope for as a manager.
Nice.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
What about you? Growing the business, hiring, how's that all gone?
It's been really cool since starting. I think the shift from Carson and Paul, the founders, running Archetype to since I've joined has been Carson and Paul were the designer and developer of the themes. It was them, and they built out an amazing support team, but otherwise it was really the two founders, maybe similar to you, Gil, and they were hauling everything that was needed to be done. Since I've joined, it's really been, okay, what is the next chapter? How do we reduce these single points of failure, aka the founders, build out a team that can kind of be doing these things? Ultimately, the founders, the part of the strategy was them to step out, so it fit naturally. And yeah, it's been really interesting building out a team and bringing into this, call it, Gil, I like how you put it, from like into a company, you could say, these things that you see at more of an official company setup with a core team of craft experts.
Got it. So one of the reasons I joined Shopify was actually Thomas. He was working, as he said, working at Shopify before, and we were working, I was at Google before Shopify, and we were working together on performance initiatives with this other chap, Ilya Grigorek, who now joined Shopify from Google with me too. So I've been so curious to ask you, I haven't seen you in person since we started working, like, whenever you're like internally, you like think about things a certain way, there's particular goals that you have. Now you're on the outside and you're like in the ecosystem. How's like that changed your mind on, I thought that was important, now maybe I think this is important?
Yeah. Anyone that maybe cross passes me while I was at Shopify may have heard me talk about performance, speed. That was really, that is a passion of mine. And it's being so product focused of building better themes, building a better platform. I am so embarrassed at how little attention I've been able to give performance of what I thought I would be able to since joining, that it's now the perspective of how much it is just one of so many things that goes into running a business. I appreciate the importance of it just as much as ever, but yeah, it's a total shift from kind of building the best product to running and operating a company, growing a company, defining a culture, all these things that extend beyond just building this thing, building your product.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. Yeah, I feel like people can be very dogmatic with performance. I used to work at Walmart Labs back in the day, and I always read these studies that were, like this linear performance graph where you like tweak it by X milliseconds and it gives you this big bump, and found that to be totally untrue. It depended where you were in the funnel, right? Like if I've got everything in the cart and I'm ready to buy it, if it's a bit slower, then I'm not going to hit back and go to someone else, right? So being pragmatic, measuring everything and seeing what's going on. I've got one particular merchant that I love, for a certain thing, even if that site's a little, I'm still going to buy it from them, right? So we care about performance a lot. We talk about it. We're built for Shopify. We want to enable you as much as possible, but I think it's actually good not to be dogmatic about it. So
it's leveled the playing field of like, okay, it's not just performance, even though I want it to be. There's so much more.
Awesome. So switching gears a little bit, we announced a bunch of stuff in the last editions and have been shipping things. And I've seen you building stuff and posting some of it. So I'm really curious, like, what are the pieces that we've shipped recently that you think are like most interesting for your business and what you're trying to do?
So Shopify has been around for a while. And so I think for me, when Shopify opens up an area that's never been like possible to extend into, that's a pretty exciting and like a really great opportunity for anyone that's looking to build something. So I kind of got started full-time doing post-purchase. That was like a new area. Shopify didn't offer that before. And now we look at like what's been released in the past 4 months. So like functions, checkout, those are probably 2 areas, maybe even pixels, where it wasn't possible until recently. So it's huge opportunities and lots of problems that need to be solved. So I'm pretty excited with like checkout and everything happening under the hood with the UI components or UI extensions across like different surface areas beyond checkout. So that's probably the most exciting part right now for me.
Got it. What about you, Daria?
So I say this with the caveat that Shopify decided to release everything while I was on maternity leave. So I haven't really dug into things as much as I would have liked to. But Markets was released before I left. I think there's a lot of opportunity in Markets. I think it's missing a couple of things that I think we all know about. I was on the Markets chat, I think back in May. But Markets and Functions are the 2 things I'm most interested in, kind of what you can do with them. and then also checkout extensibility and seeing what how we can leverage loyalty programs and upsell within checkout more easily.
Got it.
Yeah. It was interesting to see Editions as not a product launch or event, that it was more of a recap, which I liked in the sense of it was a reminder of stuff that had been coming out and also a refresh of maybe things that have been iterated since the previous year's Unite. For net new features, I really didn't see anything game-changing for themes. I think themes got all the attention last year's Unite, sections everywhere, finally launched, and so much more. But I have seen in the year since Unite, like Theme Check. I'm really good friends still with the main developer on Theme Check. That VS Code plugin is such a game changer. If you've developed before it existed, just starting to have actual code editor support for Liquid and hints and just, it just makes Liquid feel like an actual language that you can work with and not some niche Shopify thing. Meta fields continue to be iterated. Most underrated, still kind of in the weird teenage years of figuring out where they fit and how to use them and how to make them accessible. There's so much potential behind them. Right now, they still kind of land as a progressive enhancement for customers who want to go the extra mile and go through the hard parts to get it set up. But you can do some really cool features with them. So, yeah,
that's awesome. So on the VS Code side, I'm curious in the audience, would you like us to do more to bring functionality, documentation, linting into your editor? Put your hands up if you think we should do more with dev tooling in the editor. Yeah. Okay, that's 70%. Sounds good. That's good feedback. I come from a world of building VS Code editors and so I'm always excited about coming right to where folks are doing their code. So that's great. So okay, here's a fun one. Changing gears, get ready. The questions are coming from the audience next, so get ready for that. So if you were Toby for the day at Shopify, what would you do other than flying to the Caribbean or whatever? What would you do to change the Shopify platform and ecosystem? Thomas.
I mean, yeah. More themes. It really goes into apps have benefited from. It was 2015, 2016, where it was hey, let's go all in on apps, and the way Shopify was structured really bred this beautiful ecosystem of app development, and you've seen it grow into this great community. And it's not perfect. There's app developers gripe just as much as all of us, but in comparison to themes, I think. More the response that I've heard in the past is, well, we are investing in themes, we are investing in online store, sections everywhere. That online store investment is almost always catered towards the merchant because it's a merchant product. And people who work on online store are looking at merchant problems, and those are really important. I still don't think there has been enough ownership for developer features in online store and the community and ecosystem. You can see that the theme store compared to the app store is reflective of that. Just the recognition of different types of theme developers from that. There's agencies, there's people who develop and sell themes on the theme store. There's people who sell themes off the theme store. There's so much more opportunity here that it's almost a chicken and the egg thing in the conversations. It's well, there's so many app developers, we need to put this much money into it. And there's only so much fewer, 50 theme partners or under 100 theme partners. Oh, not as much money. But it's well, if we invested more in that, maybe it would be as big or bigger than apps. Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense.
I would need more than a day as Toby to get mine done.
That's fair.
But mine is, so my company also has a fulfillment arm, and multi-location inventory just doesn't work as well if you're not a very, very small shop. So I would focus on that and making it such, because right now there's either you're a very small store and you're able to manually change where your inventory is being reduced for, or you have some sort of large ERP working with someone with a WMS that kind of does that for you, but there's nothing in between right now. So there's nothing that can say, oh, you have a warehouse in California and this order came from Arizona, so take it from there. Or you have a warehouse in New York and the order came from New Jersey, so take it from there. So just a little bit more on the multi-location side of things.
Got it. Makes sense.
I'm probably like maybe a simple person, but like in the way that there's no like grand plan. I keep a list. Like if you've developed with Shopify APIs, you've probably come across like at least one time where a field was missing or like a filter was missing, or if they just added one little thing to the API, you'd be able to solve your use case. So I have like a running list, a small running list, not that big, and I'd probably just like bump all those little changes to the top of the Jira board internally.
Nice. I like that.
Toby has the skills to do that, so you would have the skills to be
Exactly.
fix it. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, get back into the code. Now it's like,
Yeah.
Toby, you've got CEO things to do. Like, hands off the code, off the code. Yeah, it's interesting actually, as I go around and meet different developers here, like almost everyone has that list, right? And it's like the list of paper cuts and it's small things. I think we can do so much just to like clean up that broken glass. That actually adds a ton of value versus always, building the big new thing or whatever. Okay, sounds good. So let's get you involved. Please come to us with questions. Put your hand up if you have a question now. We will get the mic to you. Okay, we've got one at the front over here.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question because I work at Shopify, full disclosure,
Okay,
and it's
kill
not,
the mic. Kill
it's
the
not
mic.
planted. But I kind of want to ask the exact opposite of Dion's last question, which is purely hypothetically, if Shopify were to change everything about the developer platform, but you could keep one thing the same, what would you keep the same?
Oh, I know.
Okay, go.
Shopify Polaris. As an app developer, I know there's like some people hate it, some people like it. I love Shopify Polaris, so please, like, don't take it away.
Yeah, I think Liquid, ultimately. And this has been a long journey to really appreciate Liquid. It's gone through years of people asking me, why can't I use React? Why can't I use Vue? Why can't I use all these things that all the other developers are using? Liquid nailed a few things, that it's really close to the browser. It's basic. It's just HTML at the end of the day. It's server rendered. It can be, like Shopify owns the rendering engine. People are having trouble with performance with stores, but Liquid is actually really fast, and they rebuilt it from the ground up to be even faster than ever with a new rendering engine. I'm a believer in the long-term play of Liquid. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if I have a good answer. This was a tough question. My initial thought was the way to kind of export and import theme files. Some other platforms that I won't name don't have that and make it really hard to develop on them and do unpublished theme work. So I think that I wouldn't want that to go away.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the question. Okay, next. Who's got the next question? Over here. Thank you, sir.
So, so other platforms usually have a very, regimented staging and production. One of the biggest challenges as a bulk plus merchants or something we notice is, not having a classic staging and production across the board. Of course, themes is good. I mean, just wanted to pick your brains on what do you think? Like, is there anything in the roadmap, or, kind of locks down to few players when multiple stakeholders are trying to work on the site?
Just for scoping, do you mean for apps or theme, or what particular use case?
A particular live store, which involves everything around
A live
it.
store,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, how do you do testing for all of your themes?
Wait, is this like what I knew about the Shopify roadmap, or no? I'm 1 year out. No, I mean, multiple stores and having multiple instances of the same store has been explored by teams. Staging does kind of exist with unpublished themes, but yeah, it's not a new. This is one of those things where I feel like engineering teams look at it, explore it, and Shopify will never suffer from the lack of ideas or things to do, and ultimately where it falls in just the priority of projects. Like it's actually made like multiple stores, and it kind of falls in A/B testing as well as this whole like multiple instances of the same store, and there's been exploration of it, but it's yet to get the full green light into into the real world. But yeah.
How do you handle testing with all your merchants?
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. We do sometimes have a dev environment with, duplicate copies of every app, and it's a pain to manage for sure. But we try and do as much as we can with unpublished themes. A lot of apps out there allow you to select which theme they are present in, which helps with that. So if you develop apps, that's a really good feature for agencies. I would say for probably 90% of our stores, unpublished themes works fine. And then for the larger stores, we have a dev site that we need to maintain, and it's not always maintained.
It's when that testing requires you to edit kind of store scope data, like products or collections, that falls outside of your theme, where like you need that duplicate store, or like, because if you mess with the real, like you're working in the production store data,
Although there's
definitely a need.
I think I don't know if this was released last year, if one of our developers just found it last year, but the ability to preview a template without putting that template name in the live theme was a big update. So you could kind of append it to the URL. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but
setting the template type, or there's a alternate templates.
Yeah, because we would develop a new product page, and we would, product new in the unpublished theme, and then we'd have to create just something named product new in the live theme just to be able to preview it. But they fixed that at some point last year, so that was a big change.
Even just these common development patterns, making it more commonly known is or uncommon development patterns.
I mean, I don't think I feel like as an app developer, we hit some of these issues, but like you can work with whatever kind of store environment you want. So it's mostly about like making sure that you have the infrastructure set up that's duplicated, which is, I guess, a pain. I think the biggest pain point is less about staging and multiple developers working on the same app, because then each developer has to have their own instance, and that can get a little bit more challenging.
So this is why you stay as just one person, right? Solve the problem.
Yeah, not something I probably hit a lot. I will say, like, kudos to, I'm forgetting his name, but on your team, someone allowed apps to be installed on cross-partner accounts, like in the past month, and that was probably one of the biggest pain points. So that's been solved. So.
This is definitely an area we're looking into a lot. Like, I personally am used to doing my testing where I can programmatically, like my dream would be I could in code write a test that's like create a new store, populate it with this, install this app, run a test. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work that we can do to help across a lot of different staging areas there. Thanks again for the question. Okay, next one up. Who's got a question? You can make it as spicy as possible. You can ask things I can't, so I'm looking to you. Someone's got a question out there.
Can I ask a
question?
Sure. I don't know if that's allowed. One problem we come across sometimes is apps that don't play nicely together. And I don't know if it's impossible to test your app with every other app out there, but is there any form of, I don't know, how do you try and prevent that? Do you just come up with apps that wouldn't be an issue?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, basically.
Okay.
I feel like you're getting to the point of like storefront apps.
Yeah.
And a lot of there are certain areas.
Why would you say that? Why?
That's no comment.
What experience? Yeah.
Well, same with themes. I mean, it's, I think, less of an issue, but sometimes there are some apps that have like auto installs into themes, and then they don't for other themes, and then sometimes the auto install breaks things.
Yeah, and a lot of, so the integration of apps into themes is something that has been worked on with app blocks. But there's still the problem. So the age-old problem back when jQuery was still a thing was it wasn't uncommon to see a Shopify store with 5 or 6 instances of jQuery being loaded on it, because each app would just say, hey, I need jQuery. I need to make sure it's there. I'll load it in. The other app was, hey, I need jQuery. Let me load it in. So there are like platform pieces. This is dependency management. That if we've already figured this out in other platforms and other development ecosystems, but being able to just point to, all these apps require Lodash, and make sure that they're just pulling from the same thing so that they don't conflict. But yeah, it's until things become more standardized and these problems have been the barriers have been put up, then they will still exist, but then by increasing the number of barriers, it limits what you can do. So it's this balancing act of,
Right.
Yeah,
that makes sense. And then with the multiple apps, how do you also just think about, for yourselves with themes and apps, like what should the scope and the size of the app be? Because I talk to some developers who have like one massive app that does a whole bunch of stuff, and then other people that slice it more Unix philosophy of into small pieces. And the same with themes. How do you think about scoping your apps and themes?
I want to
I
hear.
mean, like as a single developer, I can only do so much functionality, and every time you add functionality, that's functionality you have to maintain. So I think just recognizing that technical debt. So like think very hard before adding more functionality. I like to solve like similar problems in the same space. So if I'm adding functionality, it's probably just addressing new use cases and not really expanding the scope or like the surface area as much. So that's probably a personal opinion or a personal choice that not everyone agrees with, obviously. Just looking at the App Store.
Yeah.
But that's how I approach it.
I mean, when we're looking for apps, we tend to look for apps that do exactly what we need it to do. When an app does too much, especially talking about performance, and you're only using 1 out of 20 features that it has, it's going to slow down your site. Even if you're using all 20 features, it's going to slow down your site. So we tend to go for and that's one of the reasons I'm excited about functions, to kind of see how that plays out into the ecosystem. But yeah, we definitely go for the fewer apps.
And that's only a problem because the development patterns haven't been, like, this problem's already been figured out in JavaScript, for example, that like when you bundle JS, you can now have tree shaking, and it only includes the code that's actually needed. But with apps, there is not a standard pattern to have all the things, but only when this thing is loaded, just includes what's needed for that one feature.
I think that's what like the UI extensions are trying to solve, though.
App blocks, yeah, or sorry,
even,
not UI, sorry.
Yeah, like
inside.
through checkout
Yeah.
and probably order status and other areas unannounced, maybe.
Yeah.
You have like the extensibility, then it only loads that compartmentalized like iframe extension. So I think that approach definitely helps in certain areas like checkout that like keep things a little bit more tight, performant.
And I think for me, this is possible, but the future's already here. It's not evenly distributed. I don't know who's heard that line. Like some people have figured this out already, and there are a few apps that maybe do it better than others, but Shopify hasn't necessarily distributed the knowledge of how to do this or set up the frameworks so that everyone can do it.
Got it, that makes sense. Okie doke. We have one here, thank you.
Yes, hi. With hydrogen, oxygen, and headless just being more accessible for a lot of the merchants, from each of your different perspectives, like what are the opportunities you see in that?
It's a good question. I mean, we haven't, in all honesty, delved too deeply into hydrogen and oxygen just yet. But I think that I'm excited to learn more and actually get a chance to delve into it. I think the past year, especially with new themes being released and just kind of COVID commerce craziness, people have wanted to move really, really quickly. So kind of doing anything headless for our clients at least hasn't really been top of mind. I know that's not necessarily the case for everyone, but we've just been moving really quickly with themes and kind of small custom features there. Back to kind of Dion's point before about performance, it's important, but we care more about conversion rate. So if your bounce rate is low and people are converting, even if you have a D, doesn't matter. It's like your bounce rate is low and people are converting.
Hydrogen and oxygen, I am a believer, are the future for a lot of things. It's not just the only future. I've been saying to a few people, it feels right now like it's the electric car in the car world, but all the infrastructure still exists for gas cars, which is liquid. And a lot of plus agencies that I talk to are saying that like they are not convinced on going with hydrogen oxygen yet because they don't have things like the theme editor, which lets them kind of releases the handcuffs of doing little edits from after they do their initial build. They don't have the same level of insights, just apps, all like everything's still set up for liquid. There's been the teeter-totter of when hydrogen oxygen was initially proposed and started to work on, it's really, this is the solution for enterprise, for large business. Headless brings in a whole new set of problems. You're not removing problems, you're just trading one set of problems for another. And ultimately, you need a development team to be rolling with this. And there was talk from some engineers of, oh, it's going to replace liquid, it's going to, and I'm still here, yeah, see, Dion's shaking his head. That on one side, you can look, Shopify has more than 2 million shops that are already running on liquid. They can't just leave those behind. Liquid's not going anywhere. That I'm happy to hear that liquid is staying around, but really interested in how the two can mesh together. That I think what hydrogen oxygen brings is a really strong global dev community of people who know how to work with these tools already. And it's going to be more popular for a lot of reasons. And if you can bring that huge developer community and kind of push them into, or make it possible for them to also contribute to liquid projects. Liquid is such a niche skill compared to React and headless right now. That, yeah, I think there'll be a cool melding in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, just to add on that, there was a question asked in one of the talks. It was like, oh, hydrogen, oxygen, the new thing, therefore, obviously, it's the future, right? And everything else is going to go away. I just want to be like really crystal clear that online store and liquid, they're awesome, right? It's so easy to get going. You've got all of this entire ecosystem available. And to your point, I'm excited about the meshing of the future, right? It's like, why can I not build a component and put it into my, like, if you think forward on like where we can get with all of these things, they can actually work together really, really well.
I don't know if anyone's heard of Custom Elements Everywhere, customelementseverywhere.com, or I think that's what it is still. It was an idea pitched by a Google engineer years and years ago, and I still think there's a lot of power there with what's possible between liquid, that could help with liquid and hydrogen.
Yeah, and hopefully so on the hydrogen roadmap that was shared, it's like getting into more frameworks. Right? So like what would a low-level base be for that? We've got the web right there. We want to bring as many web developers to our platform as possible, and then they just should be learning the commerce bits and the Shopify bits, not proprietary stuff that only makes sense for us when it doesn't need to be there, right? So I think we can build a world where this all comes together. You should be able to have store editor type things on custom storefronts too. Like all of these pieces you could see in theory coming together, which is exciting. Okay, great question. We got time for one more question. Okay, in the front.
Thank you for a great talk. What are important things when facing merchant and merchant problems?
Important
the
thing
most-
when facing merchant and merchant problems?
What are the important things
Yeah.
when facing
I like that.
merchant and merchant problems?
Starting with apps.
I mean, so I guess, like at the end of the day, merchants are running a business. So identifying like those core parts of their business that maybe they're struggling with. It could be like growth, customer support, but just like breaking up the business into smaller parts and then addressing those problems.
I mean, I at least have always been very big on not just being a yes person. So not just doing, oh, my merchant says they need this. My merchant says I need this. They might not know what they need. And it's your job as a developer, a strategist, a consultant, whatever you may be, to hear what they're saying, but not necessarily do what they're asking and kind of come up with what the solution actually is to their problem. That I would say.
Slideshows, right?
What?
Have you heard about slideshows? How like slideshows are terrible, like convert terribly.
No.
on
Oh,
stores,
that makes
but
sense.
Everyone wants a slideshow.
They're like, oh, we
Yeah.
need it's going to be on the
Yeah. I need a
fifth
yeah.
page. I need this carousel. Yeah, that
Yeah.
no one clicks on the fifth page of the carousel.
Yeah, that stuff fascinating. The biggest
Don't
thing
you have
that
slideshows
helped.
in your themes though?
Yeah. Everyone wants that.
Totally. Now you're going to
Everyone-
delete it
you
now.
Still, yeah, people want them. You got to give the people what they want.
Yeah. I still find the biggest conversion bump that I ever got with Walmart was when we put a picture of a lock next to the password field many years ago. That was any performance or anything else.
Yeah.
It was the picture of the lock, right, that did it. It's always surprising. Okay, so thank you so much for the panel. Let's give them a round of applause. Thanks again for showing up for the last couple of days. It's been awesome to have the partners really representing things and learning from them too. Learning from you has been amazing. You're going to get a survey, and it's really important to us that you fill this survey out that you're going to get through email. And for every time we get a survey filled out, there's a group, Technovation Girls, that helps build female leaders in our communities. And so for everyone that fills it out, we're going to donate $10 per person. So do it not just for that, but also we take this feedback really seriously. We'd like to run this again, but we want to make sure that it's valuable for you. We learn from this time here. It's been a few years since we did this in person in Toronto. I know we've learned a lot, and excited to go from here. And it's just so you just can't get this on an online environment. So really appreciate your time, and thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the show, and keep in touch. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.